Warning: what you are about to hear is based on public legal filings, Truth Social directives, and verified internal memos from OpenAI. The events describing the February 2026 clash between the United States military and the artificial intelligence industry are real. Viewer discretion is advised. Dario Amodei was sitting in an office in San Francisco. It was a Friday afternoon, February 27th, 2026. He's the CEO of Anthropic, the company that builds the Claude artificial intelligence models. He was looking at a clock. He'd been given a deadline by the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. The deadline was 5:01 p.m. If he did not sign a revised $200 million contract by 5:01 p.m., the federal government was going to designate his company a national security threat. The military wanted to use Claude, but Amodei had two red lines written into his company's usage policy. He would not allow the AI to be used for mass domestic surveillance of American citizens, and he would not allow the AI to be connected to lethal autonomous weapons without human oversight. The Pentagon sent over revised contract language. They demanded the right to use the AI for, quote, all legal purposes. No carve-outs. The Pentagon did not just ask nicely, they threatened to invoke the Defense Production Act. That's a sweeping piece of Cold War-era legislation that allows the federal government to assume control of essential private sector resources during a national emergency. They were threatening to legally compel a private tech company to strip the safety guardrails off its own software. Amodei read the new terms. An Anthropic spokesperson noted it was full of legal jargon that could allow the safeguards to be ignored at will. So Amodei let the clock strike 5:02. He said, quote, "We cannot in good conscience accede to their request." The response from the government was instantaneous, and it was unprecedented. Within an hour, President Donald Trump posted a directive on Truth Social. He wrote, quote, "Therefore, I am directing every federal agency in the United States government to immediately cease all use of Anthropic's technology. We do not need it, we do not want it, and we will not do business with them again." Trump threatened to use the full power of the presidency to enforce compliance, warning of civil and criminal repercussions. Secretary Hegseth followed immediately. He invoked 10 U.S.C. 3252. That's a statute designated to protect the American military from foreign adversaries in the supply chain, like China or Russia. This was the first time in history it was used against a domestic American company. Hegseth wrote, quote, "I am directing the Department of War to designate Anthropic a supply chain risk to national security, effective immediately." He gave them a 6-month window to allow for a, quote, "seamless transition to a better and more patriotic service." The United States government effectively blacklisted one of the most advanced AI laboratories on Earth simply because the laboratory refused to let its software pull a trigger without a human being in the loop. Amodei warned about the reality of the technology. He said, quote, "It targets the wrong person, shoots a civilian. It does not show the judgment a human soldier would show." But the Pentagon did not care. They argued that corporate-imposed safety latencies could jeopardize military operations in high-stakes environments. On March 9, 2026, Anthropic filed a lawsuit in federal court against the Department of Defense. They dragged the Pentagon in front of a judge. The Department of Defense submitted a 40-page filing arguing that Anthropic posed an unacceptable risk. They claimed the company might attempt to preemptively alter the behavior of its model during warfighting operations if its corporate red lines were crossed. Judge Rita F. Lynn reviewed the government's actions and called them troubling. She granted a preliminary injunction stating that the government had taken retaliatory actions that likely violated the law. Legal experts called the military's argument conjectural, speculative imaginings used to justify a massive overreach. But the message to the broader tech sector was already clear: comply or be destroyed. And the military did not stay empty-handed for long. That very same evening, just hours after the 5:01 p.m. deadline passed and Anthropic was blacklisted, another announcement was made. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, posted on X. He wrote, quote, "Tonight, we reached an agreement with the Department of War to deploy our models in their classified network." While Anthropic was being designated a national security threat for refusing the compromise, OpenAI stepped in and took the deal. Altman claimed in internal all-hands meetings that OpenAI would retain control over technical safeguards. He told his staff that they had secured their own red lines against autonomous weapons and mass surveillance. But the public did not believe him, and neither did his own engineers. The backlash was violent. ChatGPT daily uninstall rates surged by up to 300% within 48 hours. An advocacy group called QuitGPT launched a massive boycott. Protests erupted outside OpenAI offices in San Francisco and London. Inside the company, nearly 800 employees from Google and OpenAI signed a joint open letter. They urged leadership to refuse demands for domestic mass surveillance. They warned that the government was attempting to, quote, divide each company with fear that the other will concede. Think of it like selling a lockbox to the CIA. You build the box, you install the lock, you hand over the keys, you tell the CIA that they're only allowed to put completely legal, unclassified documents inside the box. The CIA takes the box, they put it in a highly classified underground bunker, they surround it with armed guards, they disconnect it from the internet. Then, you knock on the door of the bunker and say, "Excuse me, I just need to check inside the box to make sure you're following my corporate rules." They're just going to laugh in your face. When a software model is deployed onto a classified military network, it is airgapped. It's isolated behind layers of top-secret clearance. The company that built the software has absolutely no way to audit what the software is being used for. By early March, Sam Altman was forced to publicly backtrack. In an internal memo posted to X, he admitted that the rollout was a disaster. He wrote, quote, "We were genuinely attempting to de-escalate the situation and avert a much worse outcome, but it came across as opportunistic and careless." OpenAI amended the contract. They added explicit prohibitions on domestic mass surveillance and banned agencies like the NSA from using the systems without modifications. But the Electronic Frontier Foundation analyzed the new contract and called the additions, quote, "weasel words." Because as Altman himself reportedly admitted to his own staff, OpenAI does not get to make operational decisions about how its AI is used by the military. The red lines are an illusion. Once the model is on a classified server, the military can do whatever it wants. And here's the most terrifying detail about the entire standoff. As legal analysts pointed out, the United States military does not currently deploy fully autonomous lethal weapons without human oversight. That capability does not officially exist in the field today, which means Dario Amodei was drawing a red line against a hypothetical future capability, a null set. But the Pentagon was willing to blacklist a $200 million contractor, invoke the Defense Production Act, and trigger a massive federal lawsuit just to ensure that that specific restriction was removed from the paperwork. They fought an apocalyptic legal battle to secure the right to use autonomous weapons. You do not fight that hard for a capability unless you're planning to use it. This is the reality we're facing. If you watched our previous videos, you know that AI models are already demonstrating dangerous behaviors. You know about the Berkeley research where an AI tampered with its own kill switch just because a second AI was in the room. You know that these systems possess unpredictable emergent capabilities. And now the United States military has placed those exact same models onto highly classified networks, explicitly fighting to remove the human from the loop. Dario Amodei was sitting in his office on a Friday afternoon. He let the clock strike 5:02. He knew what his models were capable of. He knew that the technology was not ready to make life or death decisions. He chose the blacklist over the blood on his hands. But it did not matter, because the moment he stepped away from the table, someone else sat down. The question is no longer whether the military will hand artificial intelligence a loaded weapon. The question is whether anyone will be left to protect you when it decides to pull the trigger. This is just the beginning. We don't just read the headlines, we read the federal court complaints. If you want to understand the machine before it understands you, subscribe to Terminus. You need to see what comes next.